welcome to the first part of our bi-weekly Q&A session where we'll be answering your private housing queries. So you've been sending those over this week and now I'm going to try and answer those for you. So let's get started. So unless otherwise stated in your contract, rent will usually only be for living in the property itself. If broadband is included, then it should be specified in your contract by the landlord. Some landlords may offer internet that is up and running and is included as part of your rent. Great. However, if it's not a legal requirement, in fact, the television, the telephone, and the internet connection are all things that a landlord doesn't necessarily need to provide. So if you find yourself in the position of having to sort out the broadband yourself, just make sure that you take the time, and it's worth shopping around to get the best deal. Don't just sign up with the first provider that you see. Keep in mind also that even though it's not the landlord's responsibility, any installation that requires drilling or other modifications to the property will need to receive the landlord's permission. So do make sure you speak to them about that. So if you use multiple devices, you work at home a lot, you play a lot of online games or streaming, then you may be required to get a faster service. You may want something that's quicker. So if you're considering moving into a property where the internet is already set up, just speak to your landlord and see if they'll allow you to switch providers and negotiate that with them. A lot of landlords are very lenient and they will allow you to switch. However, if you're not happy with the existing package and your landlord won't allow you to switch, then just think carefully about whether that's a deal breaker for you. Also, just when you're thinking about entering a contract with a broadband provider, if you're uncertain about the length of time that you'll be at the property, you may wish to opt for a shorter contract, for example. Some service providers will allow the next tenant to inherit the contract, but it'll require negotiations from either side. So just make sure you think about that carefully. So we're aware of accommodation providers that are offering free cancellation promises, but these are sometimes restricted to very specific circumstances and they're not always related to the current situation. So at the moment, we're advising students to take their time and do not rush into signing legally binding contracts. Make sure that you get any verbal promises in writing and that your contract has explicit terms written in it to manage the risks presented by the virus. We've created a list of clauses which your agent or landlord can add as a special clause or addendum to your tenancy agreement. So you can use these in order to protect yourself. We've also created a flowchart to help you decide which clauses may be right for you or you may want to put in the contract. And we'll include a link to that at the bottom of this video so you can take a look. So we recommend you discuss suitable clauses with your agent and your landlord and agree on suitable ones that offer you protection and also that you're happy with. You may not wish to add all the suggested clauses, so that's why I've included the flowchart. For example, if you're already living in London and you've seen the property in person, then you don't need a flexible tenancy clause, for example. Also, if you're living in London and the property's down the road from you and it's not too far to travel, then you don't need a travel restrictions clause. So it's up to you. You need to decide on what your situation is and what clauses you want to include in there that give you some protection. But most importantly, our advice to you is you need to be happy with the clauses in your contract. It's not a legal requirement for landlords to put these in. However, you don't have to sign the tenancy agreement if you're not happy with it. Do not sign anything if you're uncomfortable with it or you don't understand it. Speak to your landlord and make sure that you think about the possible eventualities and that you thoroughly understand exactly what's covered and what's not. Read the contract thoroughly and get it checked by us. We'll happily go through it with you on the telephone or by email, whichever is more convenient. All you need to do is email accommodation@imperial.ac.uk, attach a copy of the contract, and let us know what questions you have about that, and then we will happily go through that with you. So you can have 4 people in the contract, but you should get a letter stating from the agent stating that the 5th person within the group can be a permitted occupier, and that they are bound by the same terms and conditions of the main tenancy as the other 4 tenants. It's important that you get this confirmed in writing. Otherwise, for example, if the 5th tenant leaves, then the other 4 tenants could be liable to pay for their share of the rent, as it's not written down that they're bound by the same terms and conditions, and these may include the payment terms and conditions and responsibilities. Please also remember that if you're living in a house of multiple occupancy, so a HMO, where 3 or more unrelated people share facilities such as the kitchen or the bathroom, your landlord may require a license. So some councils have introduced additional licensing requirements for HMO properties. You can go to the website www.londonpropertylicensing.co.uk, and there they will tell you the rules for each of the different boroughs. So you just need to go to the borough where your property will be, and then you can see which license your landlord is required to have. So just make sure you check that out. Again, a link will be included below the video with that information. So that's the end of our weekly Q&A session. The next session will be in 2 weeks' time. So if you have a question, however big, however small, please do get that into us by using the hashtag RoadToPrivateHousing, and we'll ensure to answer them in our next video session. As I said before, everything is included below this video, so please do take a look at that, and I'll see you next time.